So, a couple episodes back, I did a segment on romantic friendships and that whole era of lesbian existence. And to end that episode, I read a letter as like a nice little cap on the episode. I read a letter from one woman to another, just sort of like showing, that lesbians did exist in that time and blah blah blah. And I chose that letter from a vast array of options on the internet. I don't know why I chose it. Maybe because I liked it. Maybe because it was written so well. Maybe it was written so well because I have come to discover that it wasn't just written by any other person. It was written by Radclyffe Hall, a very important lesbian that I have come to realize. So I'm kind of embarrassed that I just threw her name out there and her letter out there without knowing who she was. But it just goes to show that this series is as much for my learning and benefit as it is for yours. So, I'm online, looking up lesbian literature, as you do, and I come across The Well of Loneliness by Radclyffe Hall. And I've heard of both of these things before. I've heard of The Well of Loneliness. I know that it's some kind of lesbian book that's important, and that's all I know. And I have heard of Radclyffe Hall. I know that name, and I'm like, why do I know that name? I feel like I've mentioned her in one of my videos. And I did. So, without further ado, let's actually learn about Radclyffe Hall, English author and poet most famous for her novel The Well of Loneliness, a groundbreaking work in lesbian literature. Margaret Radclyffe Hall was born in 1880 on the south coast of England and lived until 1943. During her time, she wrote 8 books under her full name, under M. Hall, and then finally under Radclyffe Hall. Some of these books were very highly awarded, some of them had slight Boston marriage, romantic friendship type themes to them, but her best known work, The Well of Loneliness, was the only one to have overt lesbian themes. The main character of The Well of Loneliness's name was Stephen Gordon, and Stephen was a masculine lesbian who identified as an invert, as was his creator, Radclyffe Hall. Maybe it was a little bit autobiographical, I think it was. So Radclyffe Hall identified as a sexual invert, or as a congenital invert, and sexual inversion was a term used in the late 19th century by sexologists to describe homosexuality. But when we look at the term sexual inversion today, it more sounds like something we would say to describe a trans person more so than a lesbian. And also the way that Radclyffe talks about Stephen and the way that Radclyffe talks about herself more so sounds like the way trans people talk about themselves than someone who is gay. The definition of sexual inversion is simply an inborn reversal of gender traits. So, a male person or a person born with a penis is going to pursue female person born with a vagina pursuits, and vice versa. I, a person born with a vagina, would be a sexual invert because I don't like to wear dresses and I like trucks and NASCAR. I don't really like those things, but you get what I'm saying. It's just an inborn reversal of gender traits. That's what sexual inversion is. So Radclyffe Hall, just like her character Stephen, identified as a sexual invert because they both had cropped short hair and they liked male clothing, and Radclyffe went by the nickname John, and of course, they were both attracted to women, which was a male quality. Ugh, history. It's hard to know how Radclyffe Hall would have identified if she was alive today, with the vast array of labels she would have to choose from. But she did identify as a congenital invert, a lesbian, and she dressed very androgynously. And today she is largely associated with lesbianism and androgyny, more so than she is with the trans spectrum. The Well of Loneliness portrays inversion as a natural and God-given state. And the novel actually ends with its protagonist, Stephen, begging God, "Give us also the right to our existence." That's like one of the last lines of the book. While the book was not sexually explicit, it was nevertheless the subject to an obscenity trial. It lost, and the book was banned and ordered to be burned and destroyed and all that great stuff. But eventually it was published in the US, and then it was published again in England. So it didn't completely die. And even still today, it's on the top of most LGBT books to know lists. I have ordered my copy. I'm excited to read it. I'm interested to read it. If I can ever stop reading Sarah Waters' books first. Even though her most successful book was titled The Well of Loneliness, Radclyffe Hall herself lived a very full life with many romantic partners. One of the first documented is Mabel Batten, a singer. She was married and Radclyffe was having an affair with her, and then when her husband conveniently passed away, Mabel and Radclyffe, I'm not implying anything. Was he murdered? There's nothing to back that up. I'm literally just being stupid. Mabel's husband passed away, and then Radclyffe Hall and Mabel moved in together. Eventually, Radclyffe Hall fell. I don't know why I'm always saying her full name. Like, what do I say? Do I say Radclyffe? Do I say Hall? Do I call her John, which is what her acquaintances called her by? Is that what she would want me to call her? Eventually, Radclyffe fell in love with Mabel's cousin, Una Troubridge, the famous sculptor. Radclyffe is with Mabel. She sees her cousin one day. She's like, ooh, I like her. And she starts having an affair with Una. And then, again, conveniently, Mabel passes away. What's going on here? I don't know. I'm just saying. It sounds very convenient. Radclyffe wants to be with Mabel. Mabel's husband dies. Radclyffe wants to be with Mabel's cousin, Una. Mabel dies. Okay, but anyway, so Mabel passes away, and now Radclyffe Hall and Una Troubridge, the famous sculptor, begin their long-term relationship. Throughout Una and Radclyffe's relationship, Radclyffe had a lot of affairs. The most important was with, I can't pronounce her name, she's a Russian nurse, Evangelina Solin? I can't find an online pronunciation anywhere. So while she's with Una, she falls in love with this Russian nurse, and despite protests from Una, she has the Russian nurse move in with them, and all three of them live together in this strange little love triangle until Radclyffe's eventual death, where she does leave everything to Una, but in her will she asks Una to, leave enough money and whatever for the Russian nurse to support herself, and Una, doesn't leave her shit because she's a badass bitch, and Radclyffe is such an asshole. So that's the personal drama. Now let's talk about class privilege. So Radclyffe Hall was born into a very wealthy family, and she also inherited a large sum of money from her grandfather when he passed away. So that starting place, matched with book sales and also being in relationships with other well-off women, put her in a pretty good place in society, so that she was able to go out in her androgynous clothing, and it was seen as aristocratic and artistic. So her relationship with Una and her being a writer, and then her kind of weird or whatever way of dressing, that was all just kind of seen as oh well, that's how high society lives their life, we don't question that. So it made it a lot easier for her to do the things that she did and to live openly lesbian. Like I said in my romantic friendships topic video, this was a time when two women could live together and it not be seen in a homosexual way. Even Hall's publisher, during the time that The Well of Loneliness was being published, said that she believed that Hall and Una were simply platonic friends. So even while she's working on getting a gay book published, this woman sees the writer, and it's very obviously autobiographical. Hall is obviously very masculine and gay, and her and Una are obviously gay, but her publisher still said that she thought they were platonic friends. So, just gal pals forever and ever. But it's hard to believe that after the publication of The Well of Loneliness, after it went on trial, and with Hall's very masculine, androgynous style, and the way that her and Una interacted in public, it was a very butch and femme dynamic in the way that they dressed and acted. It's just amazing to think that more people didn't question their relationship. Unfortunately, I found that Hall was kind of shitty. We already know that she has trouble staying in a committed relationship, but her views on marriage were very basic and old-fashioned heterosexual male-esque. She basically made Una give up her own artistic aspirations to become her wife and take care of the house. And except for her advocacy in queer existence, her politics were rough. She was deeply anti-Semitic, like she hated Jewish people. She was also a fascist. It's always unsettling to me when minorities are hostile towards other minorities. And obviously I can never know where Hall's inner toxic masculinity, traditional gender role, the wife should stay at home, and anti-Semitic pro-fascism values came from. But my personal suspicion is that it all probably stemmed from self-hatred and a deep desire to conform to the role that she felt she should have been born into, which would have been that of an upper-class, wealthy, white man. However, it does give me a bit of a squirmy feeling inside whenever I see articles referring to Hall as a lesbian icon and a feminist, while she was preaching anti-Semitic pro-fascism views and had misogynistic tendencies. I do consider her brave. I also consider her a trailblazer. I also consider her troubled and a victim of her time period. But anti-Semitism and fascism aren't just weird little personality traits and tics that you can push aside when you're writing an article about someone and you want to praise them. Because they go down to the core of who a person is and what they believe. And I think they say some not good things about who Radclyffe Hall was. So how do we think about Radclyffe Hall today? You know, I would absolutely say that I respect her work and what she's done for the lesbian and genderqueer community. I would call her brave for being who she was in an unaccepting time period. I would also say that she's very privileged, and that she was probably full of a lot of self-hatred. But, you know, there's definitely a reason that she hasn't been celebrated or dramatized in the ways that Virginia Woolf and Alan Turing and others of her queer peers have been. A right-wing anti-Semite isn't the most inspiring story for today's LGBT youth, and to tell a story about her that didn't feature those parts of her would be a lie. So, I guess we just don't talk about her at all. I don't know. Comment below. What do you think? How should we remember her? Is it easier to tell a story that's only half true, where you only focus on the things that someone has accomplished? Or should you include the good and the bad? Or should you just not tell the story at all and let history forget them, even though they did some really good things because they were kind of a shitty person? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about Radclyffe Hall? Comment below. Your lesbian problematic fave. Thank you so much for watching. Check the little description area below because I'm going to put all the links for all the articles and sources that I used for this video. I should have been doing that from the beginning, but you know what? It's trial and error. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to start doing it now. So you can click on those links and read all up on Radclyffe Hall. You'll see some things that I didn't talk about. You'll see things that I did talk about, so you can learn more for yourself. And, you know, if you're interested, you can do that. And I'm going to start doing that on all my lesbian mini history videos from now on. If you liked this, please subscribe to my channel so you can get updates on when I put out my next lesbian mini history video. Who knows what it's gonna be on? Comment below a topic or message me a topic that you are interested in, something that I might not know about, like Radclyffe Hall. So thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on this strange thing that is my channel.